Hey guys, it's your favorite Hoi 4 gamer here from down the street. Today, we're taking a break from Red Flood because I want to be back on my meds for a little bit. So we're going to play Kaiserredux, Afghanistan. Kicking it off, we're not doing too good. I mean, we're still using muskets, the basic guns, we only have 2 research slots, we have a number of national spirits that kind of debuff us and kind of buff us. Overall, we're not doing too good. But hey, it could be a lot worse. Uh-oh. That's no good. While yes, I do have the absolute worst guns in the world and an extremely outdated military, we just couldn't resist the chance to conquer some Raj lands, so we launched our invasion. Hopefully, this goes well. I decided to just try and rush towards Delhi as fast as I could in order to get the peace deal. Thankfully, our Ottoman and German brothers were supplying us with guns, so at least we could somewhat fight and win a battle. Sadly, my strategy of just rushing towards Delhi didn't work all the time, so after about 7 or so attempts, we had finally entered the city, and the pesky Europeans came begging to us for a peace deal. With our new lands conquered, we could look into the future and lead Afghanistan into an era of prosperity and peace. To celebrate, our leader Habibullah Khan decided to go on a hunting trip with some of his friends, until the dude just gets mauled to death by a snow leopard. So now we're being led by his son, Nasrullah Khan. Annoyingly, however, some people didn't like Nasrullah taking over, so we're gonna have to disappear or exile them in order to eliminate the resistance. Eventually, however, Nasrullah had won and his power was secure, so now we could finally start fixing the country to get rid of the annoying national spirits. Nothing much would occur for the next couple of years, just me doing focuses and further stabilizing and modernizing the nation. Of course, the usual stuff you would expect happens. The Spanish Civil War kicks off, the American Civil War kicks off, Savinkov is elected in Russia, and some other stuff that I don't remember. And after about a year of waiting, Ukraine had a socialist revolution and joined the Third Internationale immediately. Germany then declared war on Ukraine to try and reinstate the old government, but it was too late. So now we had an early World War II on our hands. A little bit later, I decided it was finally time to expel the Europeans from India. A little bit later, the Ottomans were under siege. Now it was just a matter of time to wait for them to collapse in order to get my event. But 25 days later, it was finally time to expel the Europeans from India. Thankfully, my reforms and technological advancements made it far easier to push the Entente this time. Because our guns were so much better, we were able to create encirclements and destroy them far quicker and much easier when compared to the previous war. After taking Delhi, the exiled French and Canadian governments became more adamant on trying to defend India. Sadly for them, their efforts were unsuccessful, and after some more encircling and destroying, the British lapdogs in Delhi had finally given up, and a little bit later the exiled French and British governments had also thrown in the towel. Now with Delhi under our ownership, we could finally declare a united Hindustan and declare the Mughal Empire reborn from the ashes. So clearly it was now time to take our rightful land from the other Indian warlords. The war in the desert had also ended with an Ottoman loss, so now it was time for the Ottoman exiles to arrive in our nation. After waiting a little bit longer, our war with the Bharatiya commune started. Surprisingly, they tried to use human wave tactics against me. Little did they know that all of their divisions were absolute dogshit, so they ended up just depleting all of their organization, and I could easily launch counterattacks. After some time, the warrior prince of the Ottoman Empire asked to enter the country. Of course we let him in. I mean, who wouldn't trust a Turk in our lands? They're practically our brothers at this point. But the war against the Indian communists was overall extremely easy. They kept on trying to counterattack my divisions but would end up deorganizing themselves and I could easily push them back. After some more time, I had finally split their quote-unquote nation in 2, and I could now divide and conquer their remaining troops. Eventually, I was even able to encircle their capital in Calcutta, finally marking the end of this disgusting warlord of a nation. After some more pushing, I was finally able to enter the city of Dhaka, and the communists had finally surrendered. Now it was finally time to destroy the last Indian warlord. While I was lining up on the last Indian warlord's border, the Ottomans surprisingly requested for roles in the military. Obviously I declined. I mean, they just lost a war, so why would I let them lead my military? Forgot to mention this, but upon the arrival of the warrior prince, we had also received another focus tree, so we were now able to do things like scuttling the Ottoman navy and getting some Ottoman intellectuals into our nation. But now it was finally time to destroy Hyderabad and reunite India under Mughal rule. This war was pretty much the exact same as the one against the communists, just in a different area. Their division templates were pretty much the exact same, so I could easily make breakthroughs and encircle and destroy their divisions. After some more time, Hyderabad was open for the taking, and we were able to take their capital. Now it was just a matter of time before they collapsed. I mean, the Indian campaigns were far easier than I thought they would have been. I guess that the Indian people were just extremely eager to join the great, re-established Mughal Empire. I mean, the greatest amount of resistance I received were some people yelling at me with cricket bats and pitchforks. Obviously, their strategy didn't fare well against my soldiers with guns. Looking externally, the Second American Civil War is going along extremely slowly, and it looks like Germany is getting butt-fucked from both sides by France and Russia. But hey, we still have our happy little realm in India. After a little bit of time, I decided to just launch a special military operation into Nepal to denazify and pacify their region. For whatever reason, the Ottomans had the audacity to request for government roles. Of course, we denied their request. I mean, they're guests in our nation, and they need to stay that way. I mean, it isn't like they're gonna coup our nation to forcefully take control of our military and government. Anyways, Nepal was just a minor speed bump, so defeating them was extremely easy. Man, we're doing great, and we have a strong empire and everything. Nothing could ever go wrong, right? Or not. Well, guess we're now the Ottoman Empire in exile. Best part is we have a new focus tree, and by the looks of it, we can conquer our old lands and even more. So with that in mind, it was now time to reconquer our lands. Nothing will stand in our way from our glorious crusade back to the holy city of Constantinople. I'm gonna do a cool little montage of my conquering of my previous lands. So I'll see you guys in Constantinople. Even though I destroyed the Kaiserredux, or whatever their faction name was called, these mentally slow communists in the fucking Republic of Sikkim, or whatever it's called, decided to declare war on me, even though they're just a one-province state. So I was able to easily lure them out and then swoop in and take their capital, capitulating them. Now it was time to continue our campaigns in the Middle East by destroying the rest of the Arabian Peninsula and eventually Turkey. Of course, none of the opposing nations could actually stand up against the Afghani Ottoman army, so all of these conquests were extremely easy as I was able to just battle plan all of my enemies to death. I could quickly take Ankara and Constantinople, finally capitulating the pretender Ottoman government. Now we could finally proclaim ourselves as the true Ottoman Empire, no longer being exiles in a foreign land. And with that, we are now back, healthy and spry as ever. The Ottoman Empire shall rule for another 1,000 years and even more. In order to sustain this, we must invade Russia. As I forgot to say this earlier, but they are getting invaded by the Third Internationale and currently losing. So we need to just speed up the process, you know? The war with Russia was not hard at all. I mean, they were already being sandwiched by the Third Internationale and Transimor, so I wasn't expecting much of a fight. By the end, I was able to actually get out a lot of land and some of my cores, so that was cool. But now I had another big bad on my hit list, the Internationale. So I quickly cleaned up the Caucasus and got ready for the Fourth World War. After about 2 years of preparing, we were finally ready to fight the Internationale, so I decided to declare on Ukraine first. This was the section that I originally lost all of the footage for, so I'm just gonna vaguely describe what occurred. My main priority at the start of the war was to try and rush down Ukraine, and then to thrust up through Hungary, Czechia, and their German puppet, and their East German puppet to the Japanese border in Prussia so that I could encircle their eastern allies. My strategy was pretty successful, just not as fast as I had hoped it would have been. Still though, Ukraine hadn't provided much resistance, and once I capitulated them, I had many open fronts to exploit. With one major Internationale member down, I decided to enact my plan to try and cut off the Internationale at the Japanese-Prussian border. Sadly, as I had previously stated before, this didn't go as efficiently as I hoped it would have, as once I reached the border, my troops were stopped by horrible supply and constant reinforcements, so I had to take a brief break from attacking. Thankfully, my maneuver scared the shit out of the AI, so they started to evacuate Poland and Belarus. But the bad part to that was that they started to attack my flanks in Hungary and Austria, so I had to try and clear up Hungary as fast as I could, which ended up creating a couple of pretty big encirclements. After liquidating the pockets in Hungary, I turned my attention back to the Japanese-Prussian border. With more troops now in the area, I could hard push Poland until they capitulated, and then easily cut the Internationale into two. With the majority of the Internationale's troops stuck in the east, I can now start my offensive to the west. It was easy to destroy the Prussian puppet as soon as I entered Berlin they surrendered. Now though, they had started to pump in a lot of divisions into Germany and France, so pushing became a lot slower and more grueling and painful. But I was still able to make encirclements, and though it took longer to destroy them, I was still able to. And with these encirclements I was able to slowly chip away at the Internationale's armies. I decided to begin an offensive in the Rhine in order to knock out the second German puppet. This worked out pretty well as I was able to take out all of the major cities on the Rhine, but they didn't surrender annoyingly because I wasn't able to take Hamburg, so instead I decided to enter France. The French had trouble trying to reinforce their holes in their front line, so I could exploit these gaps by snaking around them. Sometimes I'd be able to encircle some divisions, and oftentimes I'd just end up entering undefended cities. After some more time I was finally able to break Paris and capture the city. With Paris no longer, this finally spelled the end for the French syndicalists. I kept on pushing until I reached southern France, where I became somewhat bogged down with Italian troops reinforcing massively. So I turned my attention eastwards in order to try and capitulate Russia and the other nations over there. After a minor amount of pushing, we had eventually capitulated Lithuania. I had also made a somewhat large encirclement in Ukraine and Russia. At this point, the Eastern International forces were in full collapse. I was able to capitulate Belarus, and pushing into Russia wasn't much of a struggle either. Looking back at the west, progress was really slow, but that didn't mean that the Internationale could rebound. So after some more pushing, I had eventually reached Marseille, and the French Commune had capitulated. With France finally gone, now I could just destroy Italy and push into Russia. A little bit while later and Moscow had fallen. Now it was just time to take Yekaterinodar from the communist scum, and there was hardly even any resistance to hold back our troops. Just a little bit after we had entered the city, the Russians had surrendered, and now Italy remained as the only Internationale foothold on the continent. Italy was just a piece of cake. They couldn't even hold their own front lines against me as I had encircled many of their troops in the north, so as soon as I entered Naples, they had surrendered. I was too lazy to try and invade the UK, so I decided to just annex them to be at peace. So now with -8 stability, 1,400 factories, and 17 million manpower, I can proclaim this campaign finally over. If you guys enjoyed, please subscribe and like the video. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so that'd be absolutely awesome if I could reach it, since I could also start monetizing my videos and get money off of this. But anyways, that'll do it. Have a good one.